This is a 71 460 block out of a 71 T-Bird, I think. And there's no connecting rods or pistons in it, but there is a vintage Boss 429 crankshaft in it. So my plan was to put a 4-speed behind this 429, and the 4-speed I've got is unfortunately not a big block top loader. It's a small block top loader out of a 65 Mustang. So I looked online, you know, what am I up against if I want to bolt this small block Ford top loader to a big block Ford. And everyone says that I need two things. I need a 351M or 351 modified bell housing. That's going to be in like a late 70s truck or, you know, Bronco, something like that. One with a 4-speed or a manual transmission, obviously. And if I run that bell housing and a 390 flywheel and the diaphragm type pressure plate instead of the 3-finger pressure plate, they say it'll all go together and work. Well, some people say it'll work just fine, and some people say it won't work just fine because the big block bell housing is shallower than the small block bell housing. And they say what you got to do is you got to cut your input shaft, which I don't want to do. But the way they're talking, you got to cut the pilot area like right here. And some people say a 1/4 inch and some people say 1/2 inch. But what I found was that the interference is actually right here. So I'd have to find a way to machine these splines down, and that's a little bit tricky. So here's what I'm going to do. You can see there's the small block Ford bell housing that was behind my 289 and the 65 Mustang. It's actually an aluminum 72 bell housing. I don't know how the 72 got in there between a 65 289 block and a 65 top loader 4-speed, but that's a 72 according to the date code, D20A, I think. And this is a 79 351 modified 4-speed bell housing or manual transmission bell housing. So this is supposed to be shallower than this, and I found that is the case, but not by a lot, only by 50 thousandths of an inch, and that's not much at all. But what I found out was I very carefully and very gently installed the bell housing and then tried to install the transmission, and when I had a 1/4 inch left, exactly a 1/4 inch left to go, it bound up, like I was saying, it bound up right there. So if you look at it this way, that guy, it wasn't this guy it wasn't the pilot that was bottoming out. It was actually the spline area. The spline area was jammed up against the pilot bearing, and I still had a 1/4 inch to go. So luckily I took it really slow when I did that, and I was reaching through where the clutch fork goes in to see if I could still spin the input shaft. And when I had a 1/4 inch to go, I could no longer spin this freely. It was jammed up. So if I had kept tightening those bolts, which would have been increasingly difficult, I would have broken something in the transmission. So I think since it's a 1/4 inch, it's not that my bell housing is a 1/4 inch too shallow, it's this area right here that's just sticking out a 1/4 inch too far compared to what the 289 had, as far as the crankshaft and the smaller pilot bearing that's pressed inside the crankshaft. So anyway, when I ordered this pilot bearing, I went to O'Reilly's, and apparently I ordered a whole box, a box of 5, which is weird because I thought I was only ordering one. So if I mess this up, I've got extras. So I figure if I take, you know, 1/8 of an inch off of there, then that'll get me half the way. And then what I did was I ordered 1/8 of an inch of aluminum, and I made a shim. So that aluminum I got, that gives me the other 1/8 of an inch. So I get 1/8 of an inch shim there, and then if I cut 1/8 of an inch bevel, you can see where this thing, it looks like it's not seated all the way, but it is. It's seated all the way. I measured it before I installed it, and it doesn't have a full 1/2 an inch to seat in. So I need to somehow machine a bevel into that guy, and then the shim plus the bevel, I should have the clearance I need. And then the only question will be, will the pressure plate clear? And some people say that the pressure plate won't clear, and you have to grind some cast iron out of that 351M bell housing. So we'll see. And another way to shim the bell housing would be to double up or even triple up on block plates. But this block plate is interesting because it bevels both ways. There's parts in it that are stamped out to bevel one way. Like, I don't know if you can see that, but right in there it's like stamped, so it pushes in that way. But there's other places where it's stamped that way, so you wouldn't be able to easily double stack them. You would actually have to cut, you know, and just use where it, cut it right there and just use where it attaches to the bell housing itself, and not use the whole block plate. The only problem with that is these block plates for big block Ford are really expensive, and even junkyard ones are expensive. But you can get them from Summit that are thicker than this. I think this one's like 60 thousandths of an inch. You can get block plates that are thicker, but like I said, they're expensive. So, all right, time to put a bevel in that pilot bearing. All right, pull the trigger. Alright, we got a little bit more to go. Pull the trigger. Alright, that looks good. I think that'll work. So again, I didn't take a lot out, but now that can go in there a little bit deeper, hopefully 1/8 of an inch deeper. So I've given myself 1/8 of an inch with the shim, and hopefully 1/8 of an inch with that little bevel that I've added there. And 1/8 of an inch is 125 thousandths, and 125 thousandths plus 125 thousandths should give me the 250 thousandths I need, which is the 1/4 inch clearance. So the next thing I'll do is I'll mate the transmission and bell housing to the block, and then I'll reach in where the clutch fork goes, and I'll make sure that I can spin this while it's mated. And I'll be careful, I won't mate it all the way. I won't run all the bolts down. I'll run them halfway down and I'll check them I can spin it. I'll run it a little bit more and I'll check them I can spin it. I'll run it a little bit more. And if I get them all torqued down and I can still spin the input shaft, then that'll be a good thing. And of course, that's how we were spinning the crankshaft. There's just a crankshaft in this engine. Like I said, no connecting rods, no pistons, so the crank spun really good and kind of worked as a lathe for me. Okay, so these four are all smoked now. They're all tight. The 1/8 of an inch check was good, so I ran it all the way down, and I can still spin it. So I can reach in there right there. I can spin it no problem. I don't know if you'll be able to see in there. Maybe with a flashlight. Yeah, you pretty much can. So definitely that bevel was needed. And you see the red paint that I put on the spline there. And then if I turn it around a little bit, put the flashlight back in there. Yep. Turn it around some more. Anyway, it spins real easy. It's not jammed up at all. So that's one problem solved. And I'm told I'm running the it's just a vintage used 390 flywheel. I'm told if I go with the 390 pressure plate, it's like a 65 I think, or 67 maybe, 390 flywheel, not 65, 67 or 68 I think, 390 flywheel. And I'm told if I buy the pressure plate with the diaphragm, not the 3 fingers, then I should have plenty of clearance up inside the bell for it. We'll see. Okay, so here's what I learned. The people that are saying online that to put a small block transmission up to a big block using the 351M bell housing, that the shaft is going to be too long. They're right. But the bell housing wasn't all that shallower. It was only 50,000ths of an inch shallower. It's just that the area, you know, the crankshaft area where the pilot bushing is beefier. So that makes the shaft too long. The people online that are saying you need to cut the input shaft to make it work, that's an oversimplification, because it makes it seem like all you need to do is cut the pilot of the input shaft, which would be very easy. You know, if you just wanted to cut like a 1/4 inch off right there, you could do it. You would still have plenty of pilot left. But that's not what was butting up. What you would need to do is you would need to cut where the splines start. You would need to remove your input shaft, have a machine shop cut that down unless you've got a lathe, and that's a lot trickier, obviously. So anyway, I got a bunch of these installation tools. You end up collecting them over the years. So I ruined this one on my bench grinder, just showing where the interference was. The problem wasn't out here at the tip. The problem was right here where the splines start. So that's trash. Anyway, I needed a 1/4 of an inch. I needed 250 thousandths, and I got half of that right here with the aluminum shim that I made. So that's 125 thousandths, and of course I'm running the factory block plate right there. So I've got, you know, basically what it amounts to a factory shim there. Don't even count that because that's always going to be there, and that was on, you know, the small block bell housing as well. But I added that shim, which wasn't there before, so that pulls this out 125 thousandths of an inch. So that gets me halfway there. And then the other thing I did, of course, was I took the pilot bushing and I beveled it, cut a recess into it, so that splined area would just be in the recess and not bound up where it would be jammed. So those two things, and problem solved. And then the next thing I want to do is get this in the car 3-pointed. So fabricate some motor mount perches and fabricate a transmission mount cross member, a bracket right there to hook the transmission mount up to, so that this thing will sit in the car where I want it to sit. And then I can see if the shifter is in a good spot, and I can make sure the starter clears, make sure I got room for the clutch fork, and maybe even fabricate a pedal and Z-bar while I'm at it. And then I've got to pull it all out again, because this block needs to be built. The heads are assembled and ready to go, so once I short block this thing, then I'll be able to put together a complete engine. As for this 65 Mustang, my wife loves this car. She wants to drive it. She can't drive a stick, so she wants me to put an automatic in it. So taking the 65 top loader out is a shame as far as I'm concerned, because I like 4-speed cars. But top loaders are big money, and I can get a C4 automatic probably for $200 and $250 somewhere in there.